Perhaps no one has done more to define the outdoor experience in Maine than Henry David Thoreau. On 3 trips, he discovered much in the wilderness and something in the souls of people who go there. In fact, the desire to connect self with place is at the heart of Thoreau's writing, says Thoreau scholar Stan Tagg of Fairhaven College in Washington State.
Almost everything he wrote was this kind of dual connection between who are we and where are we? You know, this sense of identity, our connection, and the sense of place. And how do those two things come together?
We spent 3 days on the East Branch with the Maine Woods Discovery Group, 9 of whom paddled for 16 days on the actual route taken by Thoreau and his Penobscot guide, Joseph Polis. It was a beautiful adventure in a magnificent part of Maine, on a route that hasn't changed much ever, according to Matt Polstein of New England Outdoors.
It's also been an opportunity to explore just how wild this part of Maine still is. And, from the time we left Northeast Cary coming off Moosehead Lake and started down the West Branch of the Penobscot until we hit Grand Lake Mattagamon, we saw almost nothing that was, currently man-made or in your face from a development standpoint.
9 paddlers went up Moosehead to Northeast Cary, down the West Branch to Webster Stream and across to the East Branch, and then down the Penobscot to Indian Island and Old Town. Each night they camped along the water, often reading Thoreau's words Dom Francis shoots and writes for Little Outdoor Giants.
I think when you read the text, it's all there. But when you're out here in the context of it, you really get a deeper meaning and a deeper sense of what he's saying.
They sat around campfires and thought about how Thoreau made the trip famous, but it was, after all, Joe Polis's trip. Thomas Sokolexis is an historic preservationist for the Penobscot Nation.
This Thoreau trail is actually a Wabanaki trail. It's something that my ancestors have traveled thousands upon thousands of years.
When you're looking over Class 2 rapids 50 miles from town, you tend to pay attention. This section of the East Branch has 4 or 5 sets of these rapids, which are huge fun. Maine Woods Discovery is trying to provide authentic outdoor experiences in the Maine Woods region and assembled a quality team of guides to lead the trip. We also made 4 mandatory portages, and the gang was nice enough to let me use a Wabanaki technique called a tump line. It's a strap that attaches to luggage on both ends. You wear it on your head just behind your hairline, and it distributes the weight on your spine instead of your shoulders. Matt says, I should have been at Mud Pond Cary.
At the moment, coming out of almost 6 miles of carrying canoes and gears over thousands of year-old portage trails that the Wabanaki people used, it's been one of personal challenge. I've been tested physically more on this trip than in any trip I've ever been on in my life, and I guess in some ways I'm surprised that I'm still standing, and I'm happy that I've come through it.
Penobscot guide Jason Padilla pointed out that Polis and Thoreau came down through these waters and they weren't using modern canoes.
To think how they must have had to do it back in the 1800s with a birch bark canoe, it's just amazing to know we're out here with some nice old town canoes that can take the rocks. It makes you wonder, you have to run quite a different line on the rivers knowing that you have birch bark.
Each moment had special meaning. I paddled with Mike Wilson of the Maine Outdoor Discovery Program. He told me how earlier my seat had been occupied by Charlie Brown of the Penobscot Nation, and after a long day of paddling, the group was trying to get to camp where a delicious moose stew was waiting for them.
It was starting to get dark, and Charlie flashed a light, and our friend Chris Sokolexis was there on the island. He saw the light, and as soon as he saw the light, we heard him start drumming. And he started into a traditional drum beat, and then we started to hear him sing. And he drummed and he sang, and he brought us across the last mile across the lake at sundown. It was a moment of exhaustion and exhilaration at the same time.
The trip helped the adventurers better appreciate Maine as well as Thoreau, and not just because of his writing.
I'll go ahead and go on record and say he's a bit tougher than I thought. I was like, oh, Thoreau, he's a poet, he's a writer. He likes the woods, that's cool. But being on this trip, it's pretty tough.
The expedition showed that Maine still provides authentic outdoor experiences like the kind that inspired Thoreau.
So the opportunity to start a trip there and do this type of an expedition style trip through the Maine woods for 16 days with a group of people like this, which is not likely to get together like this again anytime soon, is a real honor and a privilege for me personally.
When Polis and Thoreau got back to Indian Island, Thoreau asked his guide if he was happy to be home and got a memorable response.
And so they go on this essentially 2-week journey, and as they were pulling up to Indian Island, where Thoreau had hired him from, he said, "Aren't you glad to be home?" And Polis just kind of, well, you know, makes no difference to me. I've been home the whole time.
The Maine Woods Discoveries Thoreau Wabanaki Canoe Tour demonstrates that Maine still has wild country that can inspire a little Henry David Thoreau in all of us.